I was standing in my kitchen, still in my work clothes, when the pounding started on my front door. Not knocking. Pounding. The kind of aggressive banging that makes your neighbors peek through their peepholes. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday. I'd just gotten home from the office, kicked off my heels, and was about to heat up leftover Thai food. My phone had been suspiciously quiet all day, no text from my mom, which was actually unusual. She'd been blowing up my phone for weeks with wedding photos, honeymoon pictures, and endless stories about how happy she finally was with Derek. Derek, her new husband. A 52-year-old divorced guy she'd met on some dating app and married after knowing him for exactly 11 months. I'd met him twice. Once at a stiff, awkward dinner where he spent the whole time talking about his business ventures, and once at their courthouse wedding where he wore a suit that looked like it came from a clearance rack in 1997. The pounding continued. "Open up. I know you're in there." My stomach dropped. That was my mom's voice, but there was an edge to it I'd never heard before. Aggressive. Entitled. Mean. I looked through the peephole and felt my blood run cold. My mom stood there in a designer jacket I'd never seen before, probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and behind her was Derek, arms crossed, looking like a bouncer outside a nightclub. I opened the door. "Mom? What's?" She pushed past me without waiting for an invitation. Derek followed, his eyes scanning my apartment like he was appraising it. They'd never been to my place before. I'd bought this condo 2 years ago with my own money, my own credit, my own hard work. And now they were walking through it like they owned it. "Nice place," Derek said, running his hand along my kitchen counter. "Must have cost you what, $300K? $350, my mom corrected him, settling onto my couch without asking. "I told you she was doing well." I stood in my own doorway, holding the knob, completely frozen. "What's going on? Why are you here?" My mom smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile she used to give me when I was a kid, and she was about to tell me we were canceling my birthday party because she needed the money for something else. The smile that meant I was about to be disappointed. "Your aunt told me about your bonus," she said simply. "Congratulations, by the way." My chest tightened. I told my Aunt Marie about my promotion last week because she'd always been supportive of my career. I'd worked my ass off for 3 years at the consulting firm, pulling 60-hour weeks, taking on the projects nobody else wanted, proving myself over and over again. When they announced my promotion to senior analyst and the $60,000 performance bonus that came with it, I was over the moon. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had real money. Not comfortable money. Real money. The kind that meant I could finally pay off my student loans, put a decent chunk into savings, maybe even take a real vacation instead of the staycations I'd been doing for years. "Thank you," I said carefully, still standing. Neither of them had been invited to sit, but here they were, making themselves at home. "So we need to talk about the loan," Derek said, pulling out his phone. "What loan?" He turned the screen toward me. I saw a banking app with a number in red, $47,328.19. "This loan," he said. "We need $47,000 by next Friday. The payment's due, and we're short." I stared at him, then at my mom, then back at him. "I don't understand. What does your loan have to do with me?" My mom's face hardened. "Don't be difficult. You know how family works. We help each other." "Help," I repeated. "Mom, I haven't talked to you in 3 weeks. You didn't even tell me you were coming over. You just showed up and started talking about a loan I've never heard of." "Because we knew you'd try to make excuses," Derek interjected. He stood up, and suddenly my living room felt very small. He was a big guy, maybe 6'2", and he was using his size to intimidate me. I could feel it. "Look, this is simple. You got 60 grand. We need 47. You still walk away with 13,000, which is more than you had last month." I actually laughed. It came out nervous and high-pitched. "You want me to give you $47,000? Just give it to you." "It's not giving," my mom said, using her patient voice like she was explaining something to a child. "It's helping your family. It's what people do. When I was raising you, do you think I wanted to work double shifts? I did it for you. And now that you're finally in a position to help, You're acting like we're asking you to donate a kidney. You are basically asking me to donate a kidney. I shot back. That's my money. I earned it. What's this loan even for? Derek and my mom exchanged a look. A quick, guilty look that told me everything I needed to know. It's for the business, Derek finally said. What business? My consulting business. I'm starting a consulting firm. High-level executive coaching. I've got clients lined up, but I need capital to get off the ground. The loan was supposed to be bridge financing until the revenue starts coming in. I felt like I was in a fever dream. So you took out a $47,000 loan for a business that doesn't exist yet, and now you want me to pay it off. It does exist, Derek snapped. I've got the LLC paperwork filed. I've got a website. I've got business cards. But no clients, I said. Not yet. That's why we need my money, I finished. You need my money to fund your business dream. My mom stood up, and I could see tears forming in her eyes. Fake tears. I'd seen them 1,000 times growing up. They appeared whenever she wanted something and wasn't getting her way. I can't believe you're being this selfish. After everything I sacrificed for you. I raised you alone. Your father left us with nothing, and I worked myself to the bone to keep a roof over your head. And now, when I'm finally happy, when I finally found someone who loves me, you won't even help us with one loan payment. One payment. I repeated. This is $47,000, Mom. That's not one payment. That's a down payment on a house. That's a year of someone's salary. That's... We know what it is, Derek interrupted. And we know you have it. So stop playing games. We need this money by next Friday, or we're going to default, and it's going to destroy our credit. The entitlement was breathtaking. They weren't asking. They weren't pleading. They were demanding. Like I owed them. Like my bonus was somehow community property. I want to see the loan documents, I said quietly. Derek's eyes narrowed. Why? Because if you're asking me for $47,000, I want to know exactly what I'm paying for. I want to see whose name is on it. I want to see the terms. I want to see what this money actually went toward. My mom's face went pale. You don't trust us? I don't know you, I said, looking at Derek. And honestly, Mom, I'm not sure I know you anymore either. You show up at my house unannounced, demand $50,000, and act like I'm the bad guy for asking questions? Yeah, I want to see the paperwork. Derek pulled out his phone again, scrolling aggressively. Fine. I'll email it to you. No, I said. I want to see the original loan documents. From the bank. The actual contract. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. There was something wrong with this loan. Something they didn't want me to see. And I was absolutely going to find out what it was. Derek left my apartment that night with my mom trailing behind him, both of them throwing accusations over their shoulders about how disappointing I was, how selfish I'd become, how I'd changed since getting my promotion. My mom's parting words were, "Don't bother calling me until you're ready to do the right thing." I closed the door behind them and stood there shaking. Not from fear, from rage. The audacity of showing up at my home, demanding nearly $50,000, and then acting like I was the villain for asking basic questions? No. Absolutely not. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and started digging. Derek had promised to email me the loan documents, but 3 days passed with nothing. No email. No follow-up. Just radio silence, which told me everything I needed to know. When someone is legitimate, they don't hide paperwork. They don't dodge requests. They don't go dark. So I did what any person with a brain and an internet connection would do. I investigated on my own. First, I called my Aunt Marie. She was the one who'd accidentally leaked news about my bonus, and I needed to know exactly what she'd told my mom. "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry," Marie said when I explained what happened. "Your mom called me last week asking how you were doing, and I mentioned your promotion. I thought she'd be proud. I had no idea she'd... Wait, she's asking you for how much?" $47,000, I repeated. Marie was quiet for a long moment. Sweetheart, your mother called me 2 months ago asking to borrow $500. She said Derek's car broke down and they needed it for repairs. I sent it to her. She never paid me back. And now she's hitting you up for $47,000 for a loan. My stomach twisted. She borrowed money from you? And your Uncle Kevin. And I think your cousin Brett. She's been making the rounds through the family. Small amounts, a few hundred here, 1,000 there. She always has some emergency. Derek's business needs equipment. Their water heater broke. Derek's ex-wife is demanding more alimony. There's always something. I felt sick. My mom had been systematically working through our family members, extracting money under the guise of emergencies. And now that she knew I had a substantial bonus, she was going for the big score. Has she paid anyone back? I asked. Not a single person, Marie said grimly. And honey, I hate to say this about my own sister, but you need to be careful. Derek doesn't sit right with me. When they got married, I did a little Googling. He's been married 3 times before your mom. All of them ended badly. One of his exes has a restraining order against him. My blood ran cold. What? I didn't want to upset your mom with it, but yeah. His second wife filed for a restraining order in 2019. I found the court records. It expired after 2 years, but it was for harassment and financial coercion. Whatever that means. Financial coercion. The term stuck in my brain like a splinter. After I hung up with Aunt Marie, I opened a new browser window and started searching. Derek Morrison plus our state name. I wasn't sure what I'd find, but I had to look. The first few results were benign. A LinkedIn profile claiming he was a senior executive consultant, with no actual work history listed, a Facebook page with exactly 12 friends, a Twitter account that hadn't been updated since 2021. Then I found the lawsuit. It was buried on page 3 of the search results, a case filed in civil court 18 months ago. Derek Morrison versus Pinnacle Lending Group. I clicked through to the public court records and started reading. Derek had taken out a business loan for $85,000 from a private lending company. The loan was for something called Morrison Executive Solutions. Apparently, this wasn't his first attempt at starting a consulting business. According to the case documents, he defaulted on the loan after making only 3 payments. The lending company sued him. He countersued, claiming they'd engaged in predatory lending practices. Both cases were eventually dismissed, but not before the court records revealed something fascinating. Derek had forged financial documents to qualify for the loan. He'd inflated his income, fabricated bank statements, and lied about having existing clients. When the lending company discovered the fraud, they demanded immediate repayment. Derek couldn't pay, so they sued. In his countersuit, Derek argued that the company should have verified his documents more carefully, essentially blaming them for not catching his lies. The judge hadn't been impressed. In the dismissal, there was a note stating that while the court found the lending company's practices questionable, Derek's conduct had been deceptive and potentially criminal. The only reason he wasn't facing fraud charges was because the lending company chose not to pursue them. I sat back from my laptop, my heart pounding. This was the man my mother had married. A man with a documented history of financial fraud. A man who'd been sued for defaulting on a business loan after lying his way into getting it. And now he had a new loan for a new business. And he wanted me to pay it off. I pulled up my email and sent a message to Derek's email address, which my mom had given me months ago. The subject line was simple: loan documentation required. The body was even simpler: Derek, as we discussed, I need to see the complete loan documentation before considering any financial assistance. Please send 1. The original loan agreement, 2. Proof of what the loan funds were used for, 3. Confirmation of whose names are on the loan. Thanks. I hit send and waited. 12 minutes later, my phone rang. It was my mom. What the hell are you doing? She screamed before I could even say hello. Why are you harassing Derek with emails demanding paperwork? Who do you think you are? I think I'm someone being asked for $50,000, I said calmly. And I have every right to see what I'd be paying for. You don't trust us. That's what this is about. You think we're trying to scam you? Are you? I asked. The silence on the other end was deafening. I can't believe you, my mom finally said, her voice shaking. My own daughter, treating me like a criminal. Mom, I looked up Derek's history. I know about the lawsuit. I know about the fraud allegations. I know about the restraining order from his ex-wife. That was all lies, my mom shouted. His ex was crazy. She made all that up because she was bitter about the divorce. And the loan fraud? The fake bank statements? The judge's written statement calling his conduct deceptive and potentially criminal? Was that also made up? Another long silence. You don't understand business, my mom finally said, her voice cold. Derek made some mistakes, but he's learned from them. This new business is legitimate. The loan is legitimate. And if you weren't so paranoid and selfish, you'd help us. Then send me the paperwork, I said. If it's all legitimate, there's no reason not to. We don't have to prove anything to you, my mom yelled. You're either with us or against us. And right now, it seems like you're against us. Subject line was, since you won't take our word for it. I opened it. There were 3 PDF attachments. The first was a loan agreement from something called FastCap Business Solutions, not a traditional bank, but one of those high-interest alternative lenders that charge desperate people predatory rates. The loan was for $52,000 at 18.9% interest. The monthly payment was $1,847. It was due to be paid off over 36 months. But here's what made my blood boil. The loan had been taken out 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks. Right around the time my Aunt Marie mentioned my promotion to my mom. The loan wasn't for some long-standing debt they'd been struggling with. It was brand new. They'd taken it out after learning I had money. The second document showed what the loan was supposedly for: business startup costs and equipment. But there was no itemized list. No receipts. No proof of what they'd actually spent the money on. The third document was the one that made me see red. The loan was in both of their names. Derek Morrison and Linda Peterson Morrison. My mom's new legal name. She wasn't just married to this con artist. She was legally tied to his fraudulent business scheme. If he defaulted, which, based on his history, he absolutely would, it would destroy her credit too. And apparently, their plan was to use MY money to make the payments while Derek pretended to build a business that would never materialize. I did some quick math. At $1,847 per month, they'd need to pay over $66,000 total to satisfy the loan. They were asking me for $47,000 now, which would cover about 25 months of payments. But what happened after that? Would they come back asking for more? Would this become an endless ATM situation where I was expected to fund Derek's fantasy? I screenshot everything. I saved all the documents to 3 different places: my laptop, an external drive, and cloud storage, because I had a feeling I was going to need evidence. Then I did one more search. I looked up FastCap Business Solutions and read their reviews. They were a predatory lender with a 1.5-star rating. Customers complained about hidden fees, aggressive collection practices, and interest rates that should be illegal. Several reviews mentioned that FastCap specifically targeted people with poor credit who couldn't get legitimate bank loans, which meant Derek, with his history of loan defaults and fraud, couldn't get a real bank to lend him money. So he'd gone to a loan shark, dragged my mom into it as a co-signer, and now expected me to bail them out. I leaned back in my chair and laughed. Actually laughed. The sheer audacity was almost impressive. They'd gambled that I'd be too guilt-ridden or too conflict-averse to say no. They'd counted on me being the same pushover I'd been as a kid, when my mom would borrow money from my savings account and never pay it back. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was a 28-year-old woman with a career, a condo, and a spine. And I was about to show them exactly what happened when you tried to financially manipulate the wrong person. I spent the entire weekend preparing for what I knew was coming. I printed out every document. I organized everything into a folder. Derek's lawsuit history, the predatory loan agreement, the timeline showing they'd taken out the loan right after learning about my bonus, screenshots of FastCap's terrible reviews, and the court records detailing Derek's previous fraud. I wasn't just protecting myself. I was building a case. Because I knew my mother. I knew that when I said no, really, truly finally said a no, she wouldn't just accept it and walk away. She'd go nuclear. She'd call everyone in the family. She'd paint me as the villain. She'd create a narrative where I was the selfish, ungrateful daughter who abandoned her mother in her time of need. So I needed evidence. I needed facts. I needed to be able to show people exactly what they'd tried to do. Monday morning, I called my mom. She answered on the first ring, her voice artificially sweet. "Hi, honey. Did you get the documents? Have you had a chance to think about helping us?" "I did get them," I said calmly. "And I've thought about it a lot. The answer is no." The line went silent for 3 long seconds. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean, I'm not giving you $47,000. I'm not paying off a predatory loan that you took out 6 weeks ago for a fake business. I'm not funding Derek's con. The answer is no." "You ungrateful little." My mom's voice transformed instantly from sweet to venomous. "After everything I've done for you, I raised you by myself. I sacrificed everything for you. You made choices," I said, keeping my voice level. "You chose to have a child. You chose to stay in a bad relationship with Dad. You chose to marry Derek after knowing him less than a year. Those were your choices. And now you're making another choice, trying to manipulate me into funding a scam. But I'm making a choice too. And my choice is no." "Derek's business is not a scam," she screamed. "You're just jealous that I'm finally happy. You can't stand to see me with someone who actually loves me." "Mom, Derek has a documented history of fraud. He defaulted on an $85,000 loan after faking bank statements. A judge called his conduct potentially criminal. His ex-wife had a restraining order against him for financial coercion. And now he's dragged you into a loan with an 18.9% interest rate from a predatory lender that has 1.5 stars on every review site. This isn't love. This is a con. And I'm not participating. How dare you investigate my husband? How dare you dig into his past like like someone who's being asked for $50,000? I interrupted. "Yeah, I did my homework. And if you'd done yours before marrying him, you wouldn't be in this situation." My mom's voice dropped to a low, threatening tone I'd never heard before. "If you don't help us with this loan, I will never speak to you again. Do you understand me? You will be dead to me." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "Then I guess I'm dead to you. Because I'm not doing this." She hung up. I sat on my couch, shaking, feeling a weird mix of liberation and grief. I'd just lost my mother. Or maybe I'd lost her years ago, and was only now admitting it. The next 3 hours were quiet. Too quiet. I knew it was the eye of the storm. Then my phone started blowing up. First, it was my cousin Brett. "Hey, your mom just called me crying. She said you refused to help her with some loan? What's going on?" Then my Uncle Kevin. "I heard there's some family drama. Your mom says you came into some money and won't help her out. That true?" Then my Aunt Carol, who I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. "Very disappointed to hear how you're treating your mother. Family is supposed to stick together." Text after text. Call after call. My mom had activated the flying monkeys. I took a deep breath and started responding. I didn't get defensive. I didn't get emotional. I just stated facts. To Brett, Mom and her husband of 6 months took out a $52,000 high-interest loan 6 weeks ago, right after learning about my work bonus for his business. That doesn't exist. They're asking me to pay $47,000 of it. I said no. "If you want the full documentation, I'm happy to send it." To Kevin, "Mom borrowed $500 from you 8 months ago and never paid it back, right? She's done the same with Aunt Marie and several other family members. This isn't about me being selfish. This is about a pattern of financial manipulation. I have documentation if you want to see it." To Carol, "I'm happy to send you all the information about the situation, including Derek's history of loan fraud, the predatory lending company they used, and the timeline showing they took out this loan specifically after learning about my bonus. Family does stick together, but that doesn't mean funding scams." About half the family members didn't respond. They'd made their judgment and weren't interested in facts. But Brett texted back, Wait, seriously? Can you send me that stuff? I sent him the folder. 20 minutes later, he called me. Holy shit, he said. Your mom is married to this guy? Did you see the part where he forged bank statements? Yeah, I saw it. And she's asking you for 50 grand? Dude, I'm sorry I even questioned you. This is insane. Brett, to his credit, started quietly spreading the truth to other family members. Not in a gossipy way, but in a hey, before you judge her, look at what's actually happening way. My Aunt Marie called me that evening. Your mother just called me screaming that you've been spreading lies about Derek. She said you're trying to ruin her marriage. I'm not spreading lies, I said tiredly. I'm sharing court documents and loan agreements. Public records. Facts. I know, honey. I believe you. But your mom, she's not thinking clearly. Derek has her completely convinced that you're the problem. She's saying you're jealous, that you've always been jealous of her happiness, that you're trying to sabotage her relationship. Let her say whatever she wants, I said. I'm not giving them money. Good, Marie said firmly. Don't you dare. That man is poison, and your mother chose him. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. Wednesday afternoon, I got an email from Derek. The subject line was, Final notice. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Since you have chosen to turn your back on your family, I want you to know the consequences of your actions. The loan payment is due Friday. If we default because you refuse to help, it will destroy your mother's credit. She won't be able to get a car loan, a mortgage, or even a credit card. Her financial future will be ruined. And it will be your fault. You have until Friday at 5 p.m. to transfer the funds. After that, the damage is done. I hope you can live with yourself. Also, your mother has asked me to inform you that you are no longer welcome at family gatherings. You've made your choice. Now live with it. Derek. I read it 3 times, feeling my anger build with each pass. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost cartoonish. He was trying to make me responsible for the consequences of their bad decisions. He took out a fraudulent loan, dragged my mom into it, and now wanted to blame me for not rescuing them. I forwarded the email to my lawyer friend, Stephanie, with a note. Is this legal? Can he threaten me like this? She called me 10 minutes later. This is absolutely not legal. This is financial coercion and harassment. You could potentially file a restraining order based on this email alone. He's essentially trying to extort you. I don't want to file a restraining order, I said. I just want them to leave me alone. Then respond exactly once, very clearly, and save everything. Tell him in writing that you will not be providing any money, that further contact will be considered harassment, and that you're documenting everything. Then block them both. I took her advice. I wrote one email. Derek and Mom, I will not be providing any money for your loan. This is my final answer. Your financial decisions are your own responsibility. I am not responsible for the consequences of a loan you chose to take out. Any further contact attempting to pressure, guilt, or manipulate me into giving you money will be considered harassment. I am documenting all communications. Do not contact me again regarding this matter. My name. I sent it to both of them. Then I blocked my mother's number. I blocked Derek's number. I blocked them both on social media. It felt like amputating a limb. But it was a diseased limb that was poisoning the rest of my body. Friday came and went. I didn't hear anything, which meant they'd either made the payment themselves, defaulted, or found another victim to manipulate. The following Tuesday, I got a call from Aunt Marie. You need to hear this, she said. I just got off the phone with your mom. She's furious. Apparently, Derek's business never existed. She just figured it out. There is no LLC. There is no website, or there is, but it's just a template he never filled in. There are no business cards except a box of 500 he ordered from Vistaprint that just say his name and executive consultant, with no contact information. The loan money? He spent it on a truck. A brand new F-150 with all the upgrades. $48,000 for a truck. He told your mom it was necessary for the business because he'd need to meet clients and look successful. But there are no clients. There was never going to be a business. He just wanted a fancy truck, and he used her credit to get it. I closed my eyes. Is she leaving him? Marie sighed. I don't know. She's angry, but she's also embarrassed. She knows the whole family knows what happened now. I think she's more mad about being humiliated than about being conned. And Derek is apparently very good at apologizing. He's telling her that he was going to build the business, but then you stressed him out so much with your accusations that he got depressed and made a bad decision. So, he's blaming me for the fact that he committed fraud. Exactly. Is she still not speaking to me? She says she's not. But honey, that might be the best gift she ever gave you. Marie was right. Over the next few months, I heard updates through the family grapevine. Derek never made a single loan payment. Fast Cap started aggressive collection efforts. They repossessed the truck. My mom's credit score plummeted. She had to move out of the nice apartment they'd been renting because she couldn't pass the credit check for lease renewal. Derek, predictably, filed for bankruptcy. Because the loan was in both their names, my mom couldn't discharge it. She was stuck with a destroyed credit score and a debt she couldn't pay. Several family members who'd initially judged me reached out to apologize. My cousin Brett sent me a text. You called it. You were 100% right about everything. I'm sorry I doubted you. My Uncle Kevin called to say, I should have listened. I'm sorry. Even Aunt Carol, who'd sent me that nasty text about families sticking together, sent a short email. You were right to protect yourself. I apologize for my earlier message. I appreciated the apologies, but they didn't erase the fact that these people had been willing to judge me without knowing the facts. They'd taken my mother's word over mine simply because she'd cried harder. The person I never heard from was my mom. No apology. No acknowledgement that she'd been wrong. No admission that I'd been right about Derek. Just silence. 6 months after the initial confrontation, I ran into her at the grocery store. It was unavoidable. We turned into the same aisle at the same time and were suddenly face to face. She looked older, tired. Her hair needed to be colored, and she'd lost weight in a way that didn't look healthy. Hi, Mom, I said quietly. She stared at me for a long moment. I could see her working through something internally, pride versus need, anger versus regret. Finally, she spoke. You were right about Derek. It wasn't an apology.
It was just a statement of fact.
I know, I said.
He left.
2 weeks ago. Moved to Nevada with some woman he met online. Took my jewelry, the stuff from Grandma, and pawned it before he left. I'm living with Aunt Marie now because I can't get approved for an apartment. I felt a wave of sadness. Not for the situation. She'd created that herself, but for the fact that my mother would probably never actually take responsibility for her choices. I'm sorry you're going through that, I said, and I meant it. Are you? She asked bitterly. You seem pretty happy to have been proven right. I'm not happy about any of this, Mom. I'm sad. I'm sad that you married a con artist. I'm sad that you chose him over me. I'm sad that you tried to manipulate me into funding his scam. And I'm sad that, even now, you can't actually apologize. I'm here, aren't I? She snapped. I'm telling you that you were right. What more do you want? I want you to say, I'm sorry. I want you to acknowledge that you tried to bully me into giving you $50,000. I want you to admit that you called me selfish and ungrateful when I was actually protecting myself from fraud. I want you to take responsibility instead of just admitting that circumstances proved you wrong. She looked away. I was desperate. Desperation doesn't excuse manipulation. We stood there in the cereal aisle, 2 women who shared DNA, but no longer shared trust. Can we start over? She finally asked, her voice small. That depends, I said. Are you actually sorry? Or are you just sorry that Derek turned out exactly how I said he would? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. I'll think about it, she finally said. I need time. You know where to find me when you're ready to have an actual conversation, I said. I walked away, leaving my cart behind. I wasn't hungry anymore. That was 8 months ago. I haven't heard from her since. Aunt Marie tells me she's working 2 jobs to try to pay down the debt. Derek is apparently on his 4th fiancé since leaving my mom, still running the same scam in a different state. Sometimes I feel guilty. Sometimes I wonder if I should have just given her the money to preserve the relationship. But then I remember the look on Derek's face when he stood in my living room and told me what I owed them. I remember my mom's voice turning cold when she said I'd be dead to her if I didn't comply. I remember the manipulation, the lies, the entitlement. And I remember that I didn't ruin our relationship.
She did.
I set a boundary. I protected myself from financial abuse. I refused to be manipulated. And if that makes me the villain in her story, then so be it. I'd rather be the villain in someone else's story than the victim in my own. I still have my $60,000 bonus. Well, most of it. I paid off my student loans, put a chunk into retirement savings, and kept an emergency fund. I'm thinking about buying a small investment property next year. My apartment is quiet. My phone doesn't blow up with manipulative texts anymore. My bank account is mine and mine alone. And I sleep well at night, knowing I made the right choice. Because at the end of the day, family isn't about blood. It's about respect. It's about trust. It's about people who love you without constantly asking what you can do for them. My mom taught me that lesson, even if it wasn't the one she meant to teach. And it was worth every penny I didn't give her.
Epilogue.
Last week, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, an actual handwritten letter. The return address was Aunt Marie's house. Inside was a single page in my mother's handwriting. I'm sorry. Not because Derek left. Not because you were right. But because I tried to manipulate you and I hurt you. I chose a con artist over my daughter, and I have to live with that. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did. You deserved better. You always did. Mom, I've read it a dozen times. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if we'll ever have a real relationship again, but it's a start. And sometimes a start is all you need.